Perfect. So hopefully all of you can see my screen. 1 second.
Yep, we got it.
Did I just get, okay, perfect. Cool. Okay, so 1 second. Always takes a second on my Mac. Okay, perfect. So welcome, guys. As I say, movement and structural health is the theme of today. And I'm actually really excited for this one because I think it's an area that I didn't necessarily start with in my focus on my kind of health journey, but as I've gone, I've kind of just realized the importance in a lot of different ways. So I'm excited for this one. And just brief overview, I guess we'll start with. So I've called it structural health. What actually is that though? That's what we're going to talk about first. I'm going to spend a couple slides talking about that. Then we're going to dive into just some core principles that I've kind of tried to outline, and just some basic understanding because, you know, a lot of people just think about, you know, like just bodybuilding or like your gym routine, but I think it goes quite a lot deeper than that. So I'm going to look at some core principles of what I think structural health means. And then we're going to dive into the action steps and implementation. So it's basically just 3 main sections: brief intro, core principles, understanding, and then we'll get into the techniques, habits, routines, etc. So nothing too complex today, but I'm excited. So first up, what actually is structural health and why is it even important? So this is an interesting one. The way I explain it is what we're doing with structural health is we are optimizing the actual system that's physically holding you together, right? It's pretty simple. It's kind of like the scaffolding of your body, right? It kind of comes back to that analogy I gave right in our first call around like the human being this kind of like, well, it's electrical, so almost being like this computer, right? So what we're doing is we are optimizing the actual wires. Imagine you've got a computer, right? What we've been doing so far is optimizing like the electrical flow within the wires and optimizing, you know, everything within. But now we're actually looking at, okay, how can we optimize the actual infrastructure of the wire and of the computer, the actual kind of shell of it, right? Another analogy could be like with a house, for example, right? We've been upgrading the internals, the furniture, you know, the lighting, better electricals, but none of that really matters if the foundation, which is your physical structure, is uneven or, you know, bottlenecking you. So that's the focus of today, is just optimizing the scaffolding within which everything else is operating. So I think it's quite important, just literally based off of that alone. But yeah, I want to dive into some principles now. So I think the first thing that you should realize when it comes to the structure of the human body, and this is a really key point, it's that your entire system, like this external shell you can kind of see on the side here, right? Your muscular, the bones, the fascia, which we're going to talk about, it's all an integrated system. That's so important. It's very easy to think of things as isolated. Like if you're looking at your calves, for example, you think it's an isolated area of your body, when in reality, everything is extremely interconnected. And as it says here, force, tension, load, all of these are going to be distributed throughout the body no matter what, because everything is interconnected within your body. Nothing in the body can ever really be isolated. So this is a really important principle, and you'll see why as we kind of go, but I just want to introduce with that. Next, we have the fascia. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but a lot of today's focus is going to be on this part of the body. And as I said, your body's an interconnected system. What's actually allowing that, facilitating that, is a tissue in your body called the fascia. So the fascia is a continuous connective tissue network, and it makes up something like 10 to 20% of your body weight. So it's very kind of sizable, and it wraps literally every muscle within you. It's linking organs and separating them. It's surrounding all of your nerves, your blood vessels. It's anchoring bones together. And it's basically this tissue that's encasing everything and allowing it to be this one system, right? The way I describe it to a lot of people is I kind of imagine it as the casing of like a sausage. So imagine you've got like a sausage, it's that kind of like clear casing surrounding that, right? So it's a very interesting tissue. We're going to dive into the properties of it as we go. But as I said, fascia is what allows the body to move as a system. The muscles within the fascia, for example, they're creating the force, but the fascia is what's allowing that force to then transmit and recycle around the body. So it's basically making you like this loaded spring, which is very interesting. And the way I kind of think about it is it's this elastic energy, right? So whenever we move, that's the muscles are outputting force, and then the fascia is like transmitting that everywhere so that your body can like systemically benefit or move, you know? So an example of this actually that I find really interesting is like athletes, for example. If you look at the world's best sprinters, like Usain Bolt, they all have really good fascia because, and you can tell this through a couple signs in their body, like they've got specific tendons that are really activated when they move and specific postures, right? When you have good fascia, you move really well, you move very efficiently, right? It's why endurance runners, for example, they can run for a long time because their fascia is very optimized. It's they're not losing any force when they move. It's all efficiently being transmitted throughout the body. So this is just one example of its importance from like a movement perspective. It's very good at facilitating efficient movement, and it's really, really important from that perspective. But deeper than that, and we'll talk about this, but deeper than that, if you have tight fascia, it's really not ideal from a, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to say that for later. We're going to continue. I apologize. I just want to get through these basic principles first and actually show you these diagrams as well. So this is actually an example of what fascia is. As you can see on the right, this is like a real close-up of it. So in the human body, the fascia kind of looks like this. It's this like gel-like, clear, like webby substance, right? It's mostly made of water and collagen. And the kind of pioneer of this field of fascia, which is something I'm still learning about, by the way, I'm no expert yet, but this diagram on the right is from a guy called Tom Myers, and he is the real kind of guy on this topic. And his kind of famous line is, are there really 600 muscles or only one muscle in 600 fascial pockets? So that's like basically illustrating the idea that, you know, all of these muscles, which we think are individual, are actually just encased in this one biomechanical system via fascia. So it's quite interesting. But to continue on, this is where things get quite interesting in terms of the properties of fascia. So as I said, it's mostly water and collagen. And as a result of that, this fascia is actually electrical. So the specific word is piezoelectric. And what does that mean? It means that mechanical stimulation of the fascia actually creates electricity, electrical signals. It's the same way that a lighter works. When you click a lighter, there's a little crystal in there that like clicks together to create this piezoelectric force. It's the same with your body. When you move and you stretch, compress, twist, all these things, there's fascia that's getting stimulated by that. And just that simple, it's like imagine a towel, right? If you a wet towel, if you like wring it out, there's gonna water's gonna come out. It's the same with the fascia. Like if you move the fascia, energy comes out as a result because of the it's kind of hard to explain, but it's because of the specific molecular structure of like collagen. It creates charge when it moves. So it's very interesting. But the reason this is relevant to health is because as I said, your body converts this movement into electrical signals that it can then use to, well, increase energy and health. That's a simple way of explaining it, but it's fascinating how just literally by moving, we are creating charge in the body that is then, you know, signaling to cells, improving electron flow, right? All of these interesting things. And as I've said here, it links perfectly back to our electrical biology principle, because fascia behaves as this body-wide signal network. You know, a lot of fascial like signaling is actually just as fast as like a neuron would transport stuff, for example. So it's properly cool. This body-wide system, it's like this element of wiring to you. So from an energy perspective, fascia is crucial, and that's just again a basic principle. We'll get into how to optimize that, what specific movements will allow for optimized fascia, etc., as we go. But just bear that in mind as we go. Like this system, this network is A, all throughout your body, but B, it's electrical. It's like this internal wiring almost. So I think this is one of the final principles, and it's a very obvious one, but movement, just in its most basic forms, is the primary input for your structural health. your tissues evolved to evolved and adapted with this regular and varied movement patterns, right? We evolved walking, squatting, carrying things, climbing things, sprinting, crawling, whatever it is. Like the human body is designed to be this versatile movement machine. And what we do when we have this varied movement is the fascia stays hydrated. The more you move, the better your fascial health is going to be, and not necessarily if you are always moving, maybe it gets inflamed then or whatever. But, in most cases, just having a good lifestyle in terms of movement is going to keep your fascia hydrated. It's going to keep them sliding and elastic well. And we'll talk about why that's important. But this raises a huge issue that we've encountered in the modern day. And a lot of you, including myself, have definitely just experienced this, is just that sedentary lifestyle. The tissues, right, not just the muscles, but the fascia, as we now know, they're going to stiffen, dehydrate, which means force transfer is going to be worse. And that's going to mean less energy from when you move. You're literally going to feel this tension and heaviness to your body, at least is what I feel when I haven't moved as much. So movement is how we're going to improve the structure of your body in the most fundamental way. If you move more and in the right manners, you're going to improve the structure, your structural health. It's literally that simple. So the question then becomes, well, I guess, why is movement even important and what types of movements are best? And that's what most of this school is going to focus on. But I just want to give you guys some brief points here on why I think movement is just profound for your body and why optimizing structural health is just great for your health and energy. So first up, one of the most important aspects, in my opinion, is movement is crucial for something called the lymphatic system in your body. So there's this almost, it's like a fluid highway within you that's responsible for carrying out, in and out, well, mostly out, taking toxins out of your body, okay? So obviously in the modern day, we're exposed to a lot of these different toxins, whether it's pesticides in our food, heavy metals, pollution in the air, right? And it's not something to overly stress about, but what we do need to realize is that this system in our body, this lymphatic system, it's easy for it to get backed up. Now, unlike your heart, your circulatory system, it doesn't have a pump at all. So it needs like physical, mechanical movement and stimulation in order for this lymph to then move around the body, circulate and reach the points where it can then exit. It's the same with your brain. Your brain has a drainage system called the glymphatic system. If you don't have movement or you're not like positioning in the right ways, there are a lot of toxins and things like that can get trapped in the brain. It's just why a lot of people have brain fog. It's why a lot of people are puffy and their skin's dull, because this lymph is full of toxins and it's just stagnant in certain areas. So what I found is with good movement, you optimize the flow of lymph in the body, which is just fantastic for feeling light and having this higher baseline of energy, right? If you ever feel a bit kind of groggy, nauseous, or just stale after like flying, for example, there are other reasons, but it's because you've been sat down for a long time, the lymph is backed up, right? So there's a clear correlation there in terms of energy. Just moving the lymph system is profound. So that's one of the main ones. Just a couple other here, we won't go super deep, is obviously tissue and joint health, right? Keeping your fascia hydrated and properly active is really good for protecting joints and load sharing, right? If the fascia, which is kind of like this intermediary tissue, it's like encasing everything, it's always there kind of easing the load. If it's healthy and functioning, it's going to be able to take a lot of the strain off of like your muscles and joints. So it's going to lower your injury risk. You're going to feel less aches and pains. You'll feel a lot less tension in your body. You feel super fluid and agile. It's like pretty profound, actually. So that's one really crucial point, just injury and feeling like you don't have these aches and pains. Fascia is really crucial for that. Another one is your nervous system. So that's the focus of next call, but the fascia and the nervous system are like inextricably linked. And the way to think about it is movement is just really good for releasing the tension in the fascia, which is then improves your nervous system state, right? If you think, imagine, so what is the nervous system, first of all, right? We'll get into this, but at its core, it's just this network of neurons within you that is fundamentally just trying to keep your body safe. It's like this survival instinct in many ways. And if your nervous system detects a lot of tension in your fascia, that's almost like you're your monkey brain's gonna be like, hang on, we're tense, something's bad, there's something dangerous in the environment. It's gonna almost put you into a fight or flight state more of the time, right? If you think back to our ancestors, what would happen if they were really tense? It was probably because there's a predator nearby, and they're like need to be ready and alert. So if you have this resting tension due to suboptimal movement, then your nervous system is going to interpret that as like a constant stressor, which is going to put you into more of a fight or flight state. You'll feel a bit more wired, a bit less calm. You'll feel a lot more tension. You might not be as clear in your thinking, right? Like all of these things come from being in the parasympathetic state, which is very much linked to having low tension in the fascia and muscles, right? Through good movement. So that's a crucial point. And then finally, this is kind of probably relevant to a lot of us, obviously, because there's a lot of guys in here, is well, and obviously girls too. Everyone kind of would benefit from muscle growth, I believe, but I think fascia is really, really important for like your ability to put on muscle growth and the way that you appear to the world. Because coming back to that sausage analogy, if the fascia is the casing of the sausage and the meat inside the sausage is like the muscle tissue, if the fascia is super tight, you're not going to be able to pack as much muscle tissue within the sausage. It's going to be a small sausage, right? So the issue with that is, so from a muscle growth perspective, if your fascia is super tight, it's a direct mechanical restraint on your ability to pack on muscle tissue. And when I first heard that, I was like, that seems a bit weird. Like, surely that's not true, but it's actually on the cellular level, like interfering with like crucial cellular signaling, like your ability to get blood flow into the muscle. Like it is definitely linked. So one thing I have seen is like the people who are naturally athletic, naturally good at moving, which kind of implies good fascia, they tend to be the people that are naturally better at putting on muscle mass. So it's very interesting there. Like the link between fascia and muscle growth is very much there. And in terms of like appearance, especially like facial appearance, if you have tight fascia and these like tension patterns that aren't like natural, that actually influences how the facial bones in your face are sitting, how the muscles in your face sit, and how those develop. So if you see people with like forward head posture, like a recessed jaw, and like not good facial structure, a lot of the time that's because something called the deep front line, which is this plane of fascia running down the front of your body, it's because that's really tight and shortened, which pulls everything down, right? That's why a lot of people just have this long and short face. It's long and recessed face. It's a lot to do with fascia. So basically all of that is to say this tissue is crucial. And obviously, you know, the topic of this call isn't just fascia, but a lot of what I was focusing on here was fascia. But interestingly, you know, it's kind of the same with muscles, right? If your muscles are tight, it's going to have a similar effect on lymph. Same with tissue and joint health, right? It's all kind of linked, but I'm just coming at it from the lens of fascia here because I think it's new to a lot of you, maybe. So I guess the final point on this slide is just this idea that I was thinking about, and it's just, I came to this sentence, which is like the body processes life through movement at the most fundamental level. And like more specifically, the body's updating, regulating, and adapting itself through the way that you move. It's like, it's the most basic level. It's how you're interacting. It's how your body is interacting with the world. So like the way that you move and the mechanical signals that you're giving your body are just like really important. Like it's kind of almost hard to explain, but I hope we'll get deeper into that. I hope you get deeper understanding of that as we go. But I think that's most of the principles and just kind of basic ideas out of the way. I really want to dive into more actions now. And I think this should be pretty concise and simple, actually. But so that's a good thing because we can make a lot of time for questions. But as I say, let's get practical. So this first slide, I just want to talk about the 4 like crucial components of your movement practices, right? These are just the 4 basic ideas that you should carry forward. We're going to get into some more specific stuff, some more niche stuff, but if you can just have this as your baseline for human movement, then you're going to be really, really golden. So number 1, walking, right? Basic advice, but truly, truly profound as a habit, to just aim for more than like 10, 12, if you can get 15,000 steps a day and like a bit spread out through your day. That is like one of the foundations of health. It's very low intensity, but it's, you know, from a metabolic perspective, it's really still good for like utilizing fatty acids, burning calories. And of course, it's great for your fascia and tissue health because it's It's allowing this kind of subtle movement, this subtle shifting, and in the process, your body gets hydrated through that. And there's an energy creation aspect to just walking as well. So I think a lot of you will probably intuitively understand that walking is important, and a lot of you might already be good on this one. But if you find yourself as someone who's probably not the best on the steps, maybe you check the health app and it's not showing that you're getting, above 8 or 10,000 a day. Like, I'd encourage you just for the next week, push it up to 12, 15, see how you feel. I think from my perspective, like, the difference between 8,000 steps and 15,000 steps is like, if I took 2 days where everything else was the same, but the only difference was steps, I'd say the ideas I get are way better. Like, it's like everything in my body's flowing better. The ideas are coming through. Creativity is enhanced by walking a lot, I find. I also feel like I sleep better on the days I walk more, because it's just this low level expenditure that's building that sleep drive. And I also find this increased clarity, right? There's blood flow, there's this, your body's pumping after a walk, even if you can't really feel it. And that's all just great for all of these different things: creativity, sleep, feeling good. So walking 12 to 15K a day, just fundamental. I literally think every single person in this call should aim for that, for sure. Number 2 is what I call movement snacks. So it's this kind of nice idea, right? That and what it means is every hour and a half, you just take a quick movement snack, right? Because for a lot of us, we're sat inside, certainly myself, right? You're sat down for multiple hours a day. It's very easy, if you want, like, you could let 12 hours go by and barely move in the modern environment. It's like we have no urgency a lot of the time. So what I think is so useful is just in the back of your head having this idea of movement snacks, right? It can even be every 2 hours, but the principle is, okay, I've been sat down for a while. Let me just take 3 minutes to have a movement snack, whether it's, and we'll talk about what that can specifically look like. But for me, it will be do some lymphatic hops, which we'll talk about in a second, or do some basic stretching. Again, we'll get into that in a moment, or even just go for like a brisk 5-minute walk. Just the idea of just keeping things moving, even working standing up if you want. If you're on a desktop, you can work standing up, and every 3 minutes you can just every 90 minutes you can just take a couple minutes to stretch or whatever. So that's a fundamental idea to just have in the back of your mind: movement snacks. Now, number 3, I actually have put this as one of the basics, just linking back to the lymphatic system and the importance of that, is this practice called lymphatic hops. So all that is, another word is rebounding. So literally all it is you stand on the balls of your feet, so like almost like the tippy toes, and you just kind of bounce/jump up and down, trying to keep your body as relaxed as possible, allowing your shoulder girdle to really kind of pump with the movement. And if you do that for 90 seconds only, like literally a minute and a half, you'll feel like this tingling in your body. You'll feel lighter, you'll feel more energy, and you've just pumped lymph, you've just pumped the blood flow, you've elevated your heart rate, pumping your calves. Like, people say your calves are literally like your second heart for the body. It's insane for pumping blood. So you'll feel amazing just after 90 seconds of this. And so for me, that's probably my favorite movement snack. Is like, I'll do some rough, brief stretches and then 90 seconds of lymphatic hops. And I recommend doing these at least once a day, best to do in the morning. So, if you want to stack it, we've obviously built up some cool habits now, like sunrise, for example. One great thing to do is, whilst you're watching the sunrise, take some time to do some movement or lymphatic hops, right? It's perfect. You can stack it with a lot of things, like outside especially. So really fundamental. Walking, the idea of movement snacks, and lymphatic hops is like a foundation. And I guess this is more of a principle, this last one, but I think it's really important to talk about is the intuitive component to movement, right? I think with a lot of other areas of health, and certainly within movement too, it's very easy to be rigid and strict with things. But I found that the approach that works best for me and other people that I've seen that kind of just approach this is acting a bit more from intuition when it comes to movement, and being a bit more flow based, and treating it as this like nourishment to your body, just like as you do with your nutrition. Like, movement is nourishing your tissues, your nervous system, right? All of that. So I think instead of like sticking to these rigid routines, maybe different with strength training, and we'll talk about that. But when it comes to just basic movement like this, I think it's really good to be flow based and just kind of intuitive, which essentially means like, okay, you're thinking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113 how do I actually feel right now? What's the body? Where's the tension? How am I feeling? Like that frame of thinking, like getting into the body and feeling, and then moving as a result of that is the kind of way to do it. That's kind of what I mean by intuition. Instead of just ignoring what your body's feeling and just looking at what you have written down to do, you know? So that's a really crucial component to this. But those are just the 4 basic principles and kind of ideas that I want you to have as your foundation. But I think we should go a bit deeper. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Tibor, for sure. Thinking of food journaling, like with nutrition, it's the same. Like, how are these foods actually making me feel? What do I feel like would nourish me? That's the same thing. So yeah, this next slide here is, we're going to talk about movement for release. So I kind of have 2 categories when it comes to movement. It's like movement for releasing and nourishing the tissues, and then movement to build and hypertrophy the tissues, which is more kind of like strength training, all that. We'll get into it later. But movement for release is, I think, probably underrated in the modern day in the fitness industry. I don't think a lot of people do enough of this, especially guys. And some basic examples of what these are, I've just given my 3 favorite kind of categories on the left here. And so I may as well just break these down and kind of explain them. And I'll talk about a rough week of movement, like ideal week of movement, and how many times a week you'd be doing these things, etc. later. But I just want to introduce these broad methods and approaches to on how you can move to release your body. So the number 1, probably most common, is yoga. So a lot of you probably familiar and kind of maybe even do this regularly. I know like Jack does it quite a lot. I think yoga is just like profound, to be honest. I'm only just getting into it a little bit myself. I've always just come at it from like a bit more of a basic stretching lens, but the reason I like it is because it's quite common. You know, you can find these local classes around you in your local area a lot of the time, and there are a lot of pretty good guided sessions on YouTube. So what I recommend is, at least for most people, is at least daily you should have a release practice in your life, whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, ideally like 10, 20. But as long as you're just releasing the tissues in one of these ways, yoga especially is really good for kind of as an intro to this. I think it's really, really crucial. And what I'm going to do is I can send later in the summary that I give, I'll send some good YouTube channels that do guided yoga sessions, just really basic ones. And you can use those. You can literally put them on in the morning, 15 minutes, and just follow the video, right? It's like, you'll feel amazing afterwards. I'm sure if you've done yoga, you'll know. But also I encourage, like, sign yourself up for something, like look, local yoga gyms or whatever, and sign yourself up a couple times a week and see how you feel, right? Almost take that leap, and it will force you to kind of engage with it. And I think you'll find real benefit there. So yoga, pretty basic, but really, really useful for releasing the fascia, nourishing the tissues, calming the nervous system. Now, the second type of movement for release that I really like, which is a bit more uncommon, is something called fascial maneuvers. So the way to think about this is, hence the name, it's more targeting more directly the fascia. So yoga, I'd say, it's almost like it's still targeting the fascia, but a lot of it's like stretching muscles, like isolation slightly, right? But fascial maneuvers doesn't feel like you're really stretching like intensely. You don't feel this insane stretch, but you are basically putting your body into specific positions that is releasing the fascia. So an example is, there's one exercise called like totally twisted, where you put your arms in specific positions, you twist your body to the right, you look over your shoulder, and you put one leg over the other, right? And it's like, hang on, what's this doing? It doesn't really feel like anything, but you do feel this, like, it's almost like this, again, it's like when you squeeze a towel like this, you do feel this like elastic stretch. It's not like a deep stretching sensation like with yoga, but it's this slightly more visceral stretching feeling, right? It's not like super deep, but you can feel a release. You can feel this tension easing from your body. And the reason I think this is beneficial is because it's more directly targeting the fascia, right? So a lot of people, like Human Garage is a great YouTube channel for fascial maneuvers. Like, they've developed a lot of exercises that are really good at just specifically targeting certain planes of fascia in the body. And I honestly think the best person for this, just from a YouTube perspective, like in terms of, okay, I just want a 20-minute guided session to release my fascia, is someone called Jules Horn. So I recommend looking him up. He's on Instagram, he's on YouTube. Like I've spoken to him before on like a live call. He's really, really knowledgeable. And he has some great guided practices, and I'll send a link to those in the PDF afterwards. But like I try and do his 20-minute routine like at least 2-3 times a week. It's just, again, one of my intuitive movement practices. I'll just try and feel it, and if I'm feeling it, I'll chuck that in. And it's what you'll find afterwards is, a lot of you guys would have done breath work before, right? The feeling you get after doing fascial maneuvers is the exact same calm that you get after doing breath work, because you basically just can't, you've just released tension from your body, and you've like stepped into pure embodiment. Like 20 minutes of this goes by in a flash, and you realize like, wow, I feel so present, I feel so calm, I feel like really in my body right now. So it's a similar sensation to breath work, and you'll just feel this, you'll feel lighter as well, as I kind of always talk about with fascia. So fascial maneuvers, highly recommend. Just try it and see if you like it, and just put it in your arsenal of tools that you can use to release yourself. And yeah, exactly. It's a novel thing for sure, Tibor. I think not a lot of people know about fascial maneuvers, but it's so powerful for your energy and things like that. So that's 2 of them. And then the final one is called myofascial release. So this is probably something you guys are more familiar with in terms of what it's actually doing. So this is more like targeted, nitty gritty, getting into the tissues, right? So like you'll get, let's say you just target like your trap, you're just going to get in there for 10 minutes and just massage that, right? Like that's more myofascial release. Yoga is more systemic stretching. Fascial maneuvers is more like releasing specific planes of fascia. Myofascial release is like getting into the tissues like individually, and releasing any adhesions, right? And it's still really useful. So the way I do this, and I'll talk about the specific tools to use later, but I personally just have like a little section in my room with a couple of these tools, and I'll, again, all intuitive, I'll think to myself, okay, where's some tension right now? Okay, I've just been sat down for 2 hours, my neck feels a little bit sore, feels a bit forward. I'm going to release my neck muscles with a lacrosse ball, for example, or literally just your hand. Or let's say you went to the gym yesterday and you trained legs and you're feeling some tension. It's like, okay, my hamstrings just need some work. I'm just going to focus on those for 5 minutes with the foam roller. Like that's the kind of idea with myofascial release. It's quite good if you're into your bodybuilding or hypertrophy training, because you can really feel the specific areas that are tense after training them. So myofascial release is a really great tool. And essentially the way to think about release in general is, if you just have like rough, if you have these 3 rough areas in your toolbox, you can use it. It will cover every area you essentially need, right? So as I said, they all have a slightly different role, and that means you can really use them intuitively. You can feel and think, okay, what am I feeling like I need right now? And then you can choose one accordingly. So that's why I like giving you multiple options, because like for me right now, I'm finding myofascial release really, really like the most useful of all of them, just because I'm training quite a lot. So like this is really like my favorite. But if you're someone who's not training a ton and you just want to, and you feel like you just want to relieve some low level tension, fascial maneuvers might be better, for example. So final note here is this idea that I really believe in. It's like we don't even realize how tight we are until we release. And when you do release, when you release that tension, you'll feel this surge of energy and clarity. At least that's what I get, right? It's very easy to go 2-3 days without even realizing how tight you are. And then just 20 minutes of releasing and you feel like kind of reborn. So that idea, carry yourself with that, because it will really incentivize you to do these practices. And once you feel the difference, like you will genuinely not want to not do these. You'll literally, this will become a part of your day when you feel the difference, for sure. So I guess final few points, actually, I lied. There are a few more things I want to touch on this slide. Is one just little thing in terms of the best way to go about this is, if you can combine these tools like yoga, myofascial release, fascial maneuvers with heat and proper breathing, so deep into the diaphragm, slow exhales, like the best way to do it is like on the exhale, that's when you deepen into the stretch, right? That's really good. It's like working with your nervous system to get a deeper release. So proper breathing, crucial, but also heat. So let's say like a lot of hot yoga places will do this, or you can do it right after the sauna. Yeah, exactly, Tibor. Hot yoga is properly good for you. So heat, proper breathing, just something to bear in mind. And then finally, as I've said, fascia is really, you can make it healthier by moving, but it's also really important to think about hydrating the fascia from a nutrition perspective too. So this is where it kind of all comes back full circle. Good hydration, quality spring water, good minerals, lots of time in nature. All of that's really important for keeping your fascia hydrated as well. So like an inflammatory tap water diet is not going to be as good for your fascia. You'll feel the tension as a result. So it's all interlinked, but just a little point there. So I'm talking a lot. We're almost kind of through here. We've got only a few more slides. As I say, feel free to interject at any point, but I think we're doing really well. Hope you guys are getting some value here. So this slide here is going to be talking about more specifically the tools that I recommend for release. And I've got all of these just kind of under my bed right now, but I think these are all like really good basic tools. And this is more for myofascial release, as I said, but I think everyone can benefit from just having these in their arsenal, right? So I'll start with the middle picture. This is more of a general principle, not a tool per se, but I recommend everyone having like a dedicated space for movement in your house if you can, right? So whether it's getting a nice yoga mat or positioning it with a nice view or getting some plants and stashing all your equipment there, like having a dedicated space for movement is really profound for like your brain to think. It's a good way of incentivizing yourself to actually do this stuff because you have this dedicated space for it. At least is what I've found, right? So I'll give you a direct example. In my room here, literally like a few months ago, I didn't have a dedicated space for movement. And back then I was really not doing it as often. And literally the only change I've made now is I vaulted my bed up to free up space underneath it. And I've put my movement den under there. And now I do it every day, like literally without really even changing the intention behind it. It's just become way more automatic. So having a dedicated space, even if it's just like small and the size of a yoga mat, super powerful for your brain to just as an incentive to take action on this. Now, going a bit more deep, I think everyone should have a foam roller if you can. And I could talk about how to use these more deeply in a second. I also recommend getting a lacrosse ball. So the difference between these two, foam rollers, like more targeting, you'd roll out like longer planes and longer areas of tissue, like the back or your hamstrings or your quads, right? The lacrosse ball, obviously it's smaller. So this is better for getting into like really niche areas and a bit more deeply, right? Maybe just under the shoulder or the back of the neck, or even like your abs, for example. Like it sounds a bit weird, but you can really get into these deep grooves and specific areas with the lacrosse ball. I love it for the neck and upper back personally. So the next few ones, this is called like a myofascial release stick or something. I actually don't really know the name. It was kind of hard to find the name, but I do have one. This is really good for releasing the neck and upper back. So what you essentially do is you take it and you hook it on, and these little nodes here are really good for getting deep into little points of tension, right, into those knots. And what I do is you essentially take this, put it over your shoulder, find an area of tension, put it into a knot, and then just breathe super deeply. And on the exhales, like move it a little bit, move it up and down on the knot, press a little bit deeper. And then you basically just do that for 10 minutes. And what you'll literally find is if you do one side and not the other, you can almost feel like, especially with the upper back, I'll find that one side actually drops lower and one side feels considerably lighter. So this is a really good tool for upper back, neck as well, because you can like hook it on and move a little bit and position it so that it's right on the knots and you can release them that way. So it's really useful. And then finally, massage gun, pretty basic, but if you get a massage gun, this is really good, again, for precise, specific myofascial release. I really like this for, again, the legs. For me, the legs always get the most sore. So you can really get into niche areas here, really, really useful. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk about the best areas that I think everyone should be focusing on in terms of releasing and how to do that. But yeah, so actually we may as well dive into that now. But these are just the basic tools, everyone. I think these are all, everyone should kind of have a few of these if you can. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the best muscles to release and kind of why as well. So from my perspective, these are like the most beneficial, high ROI ones to put in the back of the mind as ones to release. And I'll list through them and explain why I think that's the case. So first up is the psoas muscle. So this is quite a common one. It's like right around your pelvis essentially. And from what I've found, if this muscle is tight, it's going to worsen your breathing mechanics. It's going to like put tension in your diaphragm, and that directly will compromise your nervous system. Like I think there's a direct correlation between your ability to feel relaxed and stable and how tight your psoas is, especially for guys. Like if you ever feel tense, nervous, and anxious, like, well, not especially for guys, that was stupid. Like for any human, if you ever feel like tense, the psoas is crucial. I get the bit specific to guys that I found is like, if you ever just want to feel a bit more grounded, stable, and clear, just like, I think a lot of masculinity is linked to how loose your psoas is, in my opinion. So I think that's really, really profound, just releasing this. In terms of how, there's something called the psoas lunge, which I really like. So it's literally just like a normal lunge. You put your back, you take one leg, put it behind you, and then one leg you put in front in a lunge position. And all you do is you tilt your pelvis under and you lean forward and feel the stretch in your hips. And you can do that for like 60, 90 seconds per side, a few times a day. And again, this will all be in the document. There'll be like some images, guides, all that, but I'm just kind of introducing them to you. So I find this really great for calming the nervous system, releasing systemic tension for sure. Next couple ones, the neck muscles, right? Like from a brain fog, cognitive function, higher thinking perspective, if your neck muscles are tight, the glymphatic system, which is responsible for getting like toxins out of your brain, that's not going to be operating as well, right? There's something called cerebral spinal fluid, which is really important for nourishing the tissues in your brain. That's not going to be able to flow as well, right? And all of that's going to worsen your cognitive function. And it's literally just because the neck muscles are tight. And most people, again, that's another point, most people's neck muscles are super tight because we've got tech neck always hunched over. A lot of fascial planes are really tense, and then that all ends up translating into the neck. So I really believe that releasing the neck muscles, especially these two, so there's the SCN muscles, not SCM, no, SCM, yeah, sternocleidomastoid muscles. Those are these two kind of pillars at the front of your neck. So you can kind of feel those when you like retract your chin, they kind of stick out. Those are really important to release. And then the suboccipitals, which are right at the back of your head. Like almost if you find the top of your spine, that like kind of node there, and go right above into the sides, those are the suboccipitals. And that's probably the most important for cerebrospinal fluid flow, because those are like literally right above where the fluid's flowing. So releasing these two, I try and do every day, to be honest. And there's for some reason always tension there. So I think everyone would benefit from this. And again, specific stretches will be in the document, but I'll just give you a brief overview. So for the suboccipitals, I'll always use the lacrosse ball. I'll put it on the floor, I'll put it behind this region, and I'll nod up and down. And it really like kind of is good for releasing that. But also just even using your hands. So I'll take my two hands like this, I'll grab the tissues and I'll like pull them apart like that. So I'm doing this, I'm like spreading them to release the tension. So that's really useful. And then for the SCM muscles, again, I kind of mentioned earlier, you just retract your neck, you grab the actual tendon here, and then you just basically pinch it and roll like that, pinch and roll to release the tension. And you just slowly move up the muscle as you do it. And I mean, actually right now I'm feeling a lot of tension there, so I'll probably do a bit of that later, but doing this daily, super, super useful for your brain fog. And also if you ever wake up like super puffy more than normal, your neck muscles are probably tight. That's another kind of sign as well. So third one here, the jaw and temples. So this is crucial because, I mean, think about how many times you've chewed in your life, right? The jaw muscles obviously activate when you chew, same with the temples. So these get super tight for a lot of people. And again, that can cause a lot of brain fog. That can cause a lot of unnecessary tension. The jaw is literally the strongest muscle in your entire body. So it's really important to release it. So what I recommend for this is literally just using your hands. Again, like I'll use knuckles sometimes, but even fingers. You basically just want to melt into there and just massage in circular motions. Same with the temples. And I'll do this. I'll try to do this daily if I feel like it's needed. And again, I can give some more specific details in the document in terms of like timing. But again, a lot of it's intuitive. You know, if you're not feeling tension there and you don't feel a need to massage that area, then you probably, you don't necessarily have to. So that's important. But yeah, next one, I'll try and get through these a little bit more quickly. We have the feet. I think this is one of the more important ones. We all wear these feet prisons, these shoes that we were not evolved to wear. And so the muscles in our feet get a lot of unnecessary tension and are like poorly that the muscles are activating properly, but there's just a lot of tension there. And why is that important? Well, as I said, your body's a system. The muscles in your feet literally run up all the way through your body and connect to the muscles in your face, for example, through like things like the deep front line, the superficial front line. So these planes of fascia connect your feet to the rest of your body. And so if your feet are poorly shaped and tense, especially the bottoms of the feet, then you're going to have tension other places in the body. So what I do is every single day, this is probably the one I do the most, is I roll out the bottoms of my feet with the lacrosse ball. And I don't know why, maybe it's just me, but this one always feels amazing. Like you just feel this tension melting from your feet, and your entire body like actually feels the benefit from it. So literally 2 minutes releasing the bottoms of the feet is just profound. Again, lacrosse ball is a great tool. So the next, superficial front line. So this is, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but this is basically the plane of fascia that is like covering the entire front of your body. And the issue with this is most people's superficial front line is shortened because we sat down with, hunched over a little bit, especially if you're training a lot, your push muscles will make you do this, and that shortens the front line. And that is not great for just feeling energized, but also it's not good for like facial development or really energy either. So the best way to fix this, one simple stretch, is the upward facing dog. So this is a classic yoga pose. It's literally where it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like a prone position, and then you push up your torso like this from the ground while your legs are staying flat on the ground. So it kind of looks like this. And then you want to tilt your head back as far as possible and look as far up to the ceiling as you can, and breathe super deep into your abs to kind of expand those and get a deeper stretch as well. So that's super powerful for the front line. So if you're sat down a lot, this is like a great stretch to counter that. And then the next few here, the tongue and the palate. So again, no one realizes this, but your tongue is holding so much tension. It's kind of insane. And again, the tongue, the fascia from the tongue runs all the way down your body. And a lot of people's tongues are super tight, and this can impact, the way your face looks in the long run as well. But your ability to rest with your tongue and the palate, which is crucial for facial development. If your tongue's tight, that's really going to impede that process. So the best way I like to do this is, again, it sounds a bit crazy, but you literally take a towel, you put your fingers around it, you grab your tongue with the towel, and you just pull it in different directions. And it feels really good afterwards. I can't really explain the sensation, but definitely worth trying. And then the final bit here for this one is the palate as well. So the roof of your mouth, that soft tissue can always get quite tight. So what I like doing is something called palate swipes, which is where you take your thumb and you press it into the palate and swipe it to kind of release that those tension points. This can also feel quite good. It can unlock a lot of facial tension. And this brings up a practice called thumb pulling, which I'm quite familiar with because the person who invented this was someone I used to work with a lot. So if you're interested in releasing the palate, releasing facial tension to improve like mental function and the way you look, then definitely I can talk to you about that over messages and get you on the thumb pulling. I think it's really useful from that perspective. And then, final couple points here, more obvious probably to most of you, is like the upper back and lats. Really, those get super tight for a lot of people. So the best way to counteract that is like dead hangs, or I've called them arm holds. I didn't really know how else to explain it, but this is where you like grab like a horizontal pole and then lean back and like allow your lat to stretch out like that, almost like you're like Superman, right? You're just stretching that lat as much as possible and almost leaning back to feel the lat stretch. And then same with the dead hangs. That's really great. Like I try dead hang every time I go to the gym, and I at least gain like an inch of height from doing that. It's insane. Just shows how much compression there is. So final one, quads, hams, and glutes. So most just basically the lower body. The way I release these is literally just with the foam roller, the massage gun, or even just by doing specific stretches, which again will be in the document. So these are the target ones. And the reason I've listed these in particular is because I feel like these are the most bang for your buck in terms of releasing tension and the most common areas that hold tension in the body. So that was kind of a long one, but I hope that's useful. And as I say, I'm going to try and provide you guys with a more comprehensive PDF with a bit more of these and some images maybe. And then also, I think in the future, I'll probably do guided videos as well of like some movement things too, because I think it can be really useful and I certainly love having them for myself. So yeah, I think just a summary, daily action steps so far: walking 12 to 15K a day, we mentioned that, foundation, and then 2 to 20 minutes of any release practice that you intuitively feel daily, if you can, right? Like I think everyone can benefit from that. And when you do it, you'll feel right? You'll feel the difference. Number 3, lymphatic hops, ideally in the morning. It's 90 seconds is all you need to do. It sounds like it's pretty easy, but you'll feel like a bit puffed out after 90 seconds of lymphatic hops. And your calves will feel a really good kind of fatigue as well. So do those daily. And then the final point is create a dedicated zone for movement in your home. So what I've done, as I say, under my bed, I just have a yoga mat, and that's my zone. And I'll just spend 10 minutes there a day just to release anything intuitively. It's not like this huge thing you have to make time for. It's literally just like, if the space is there, it's probably going to happen, especially if it's obviously placed. And, I don't even put it on my habits list. It's not even on my calendar to do this. For example, like some people really schedule things out. It's literally just something I do automatically now. And I think that's what movement can be. It's just a very intuitive practice, just like how you'd go and eat your food. You feel hungry, so you're going to go eat. It's like, I feel tense, so I'm going to go stretch, right? It's the same thing. You don't need to make it this big thing. Now, final section here, because obviously a lot of us are pretty interested in movement for building tissue, right? Now this can go pretty deep. I put a picture of Arnold there. He's the icon of muscle building and bodybuilding and all that, in my opinion. But essentially, I don't want to go super deep into like hypertrophy training and all that, because I think probably a lot of you here will have your own kind of approach and understanding of that. That said, if you do want to go deep, we can you can ask me questions on messages. You can send me voice messages. Like, I'd be happy to dive in with you on an individual level. But I think for the purpose of this call, I just want to go over the basics. So in terms of the most basic practices, and this applies to men and women, I think you should have some form of resistance training per week. So like ideally 2 to 5 times a week. So in terms of strength training, a lot of you are familiar, it's literally traditional bodybuilding hypertrophy training. For women, it can be the exact same thing, just like lower volumes, targeting slightly different muscle groups, maybe a bit more of a lower body emphasis. And in terms of specific work, I can't bloody speak. In terms of specific workout routines, again, you can message me if you want specific help on creating one for yourself. For myself, I think I like traditional ones like push-pull legs. I think is actually pretty good. The Arnold split as well, I think it's really good. I wouldn't recommend training like a bro split, which is where you do one muscle group per day of the week. I think it's good to train things like 1 to 2 times, like around 2 times a week if you can, if you're really trying to prioritize tissue building. But yeah, just some basic principles for putting on muscle and hypertrophy training. These are literally the 3 outside of nutrition, sleep, recovery. All of that is every time you get into the gym, you want to be getting stronger at your movements. So let's say you are doing a bench press for 6 to 8 reps. You either want to be let's say last week you got 6 reps of 135 pounds. Next week, you want to make sure you're either getting 7 reps or 8 reps or more, or you're increasing the weight to 62.5 or something, right? Or like 150, right? So the key, and that's a term called progressive overload. When it comes to putting on tissue, your body responds to the amount of mechanical tension that the muscle is getting. And the best way to improve the mechanical tension is have it constantly increasing. That's going to force your body to adapt and put on tissue, right? If you're constantly giving your muscles the same stimulus via the same weight or just the same approach and the same intensity, it's never going to force growth. So if you're really trying to pack on tissue, the key is intensity and week on, week out, getting stronger and stronger on your movements, increasing the tension you're putting on the muscle. So that's probably the most fundamental principle. I'd say the second one is, if you're trying to train for hypertrophy, I recommend, a lot of people say it doesn't matter whether you do 5 or 30 reps. I think the sweet spot is like 12 to 20, like from my perspective. So that's a really good rep range. And then I'd say the third principle as well is, like training to failure. So you don't have to do this the whole time, but just getting close to muscular failure is super important, again, for forcing the adaptation. So those are just some tips, basic stuff probably for all of you. But again, the basic principle here is 2 to 5 times a week of resistance training, whether it's body weight stuff like calisthenics, whether it's even training outside. You can, especially in Thailand, Jack, like you can find outdoor gyms, pull-up bars, dip bars, all of that. That's perfect. Or yeah, just like going to a gym and doing traditional strength training. Really, really powerful. So I think every human being should have that at least a little bit. I would say Pilates is included in that as well. Like if you aren't super keen on like hardcore strength training, or you feel like a little bit tense in your body still and you want to reduce aches and pains first, like Pilates is a good middle ground in my opinion. So I'd recommend that as well. Now, next couple ones, sprinting. Like I think as guys, especially sprinting is like so good for you. It's good for your hormones. It's good for your fascia because you're literally, it's a whole body exercise, right? You're literally activating all of these different systems in your body at once to produce as much force output as possible. So sprinting, I try to do them 1 to 2 times a week. The best way to do any type of training, as I've said on the bottom, but especially sprints, is barefoot. So if I'm in a public gym, I'll just wear socks and take off my shoes. But like if you're at home or whatever, you're outside, you're doing sprints, barefoot is always going to be best. So that's just one quick principle. But sprints twice a week if you can. Obviously, if there's snow on the ground, you can just wear your trainers. I understand that's you don't want to be running on snow by barefoot by any means. And then I think the final point here is hill sprints too. Like if you have access to hills, what's really good about hill sprints is it almost forces good posture. A lot of the issues people have with sprinting is they'll use duck feet and they'll use incorrect posture when they sprint and they can get injured. Hill sprints, A, make it harder, so there's more of an adaptation, but B, it forces you a bit more to be like more like this with your feet instead of like this, which is much better for like gait mechanics and how your fascia develops and sits too. So duck feet aren't ideal. It's a general principle, especially with sprinting. Now, again, I'll get to this relatively quickly. I put zone 2 cardio in the building section, which is probably a mistake, but I think it's just kind of largely grouped in with a lot of the bodybuilding, hypertrophy building kind of thing. It is definitely building up your cardiovascular system. So I guess in that sense, it's relevant. But the two best things I like are jump rope, because it's you get the lymphatic benefit. You're basically doing lymphatic hops, but with the jump rope. So it's coordination, fascia, lymph, and you get a really good workout. And then also incline treadmill. So literally 20-30 minutes of incline walking in the gym, or if you can like go on a hike up a hill, that's obviously going to be better outside. That's profound. I'll try to do that 1 to 2 times a week. Or even if you don't want to do that, you can just go on a really brisk walk. That's will also count for zone 2 cardio. 1 to 2 times a week is really all you need there, in my opinion. And then final ones, functional movements. So this is something I'm getting more and more into, but this includes like things like farmer carries, right? Where you carry 2 heavy things and walk with them in your hands, or sandbags, which are these heavy like sacks of sand that you pick up and drop. And that is, all of these are activating the muscles in the body in very specific, but what's the word? Like systemic ways, right? You're getting these really niche movement patterns that you wouldn't get just from like say a bench press, which is very much kind of linear in its movement pattern. So this is really good for training like niche muscles. It's good for training the nervous system and good for moving more naturally, because, you know, ancestrally we wouldn't just be doing bench press. We'd be like cutting down and picking up trees or throwing spears, right? The human body responds well to these more functional movements. I think the key is integrating this with the strength training. So the strength training is like the foundation of your hypertrophy and building muscle. And then the functional movements are like a cherry on top to improve. I think what I found is the people with the most functional physiques have this like, sorry, I can't speak again. The people with the most functional physiques are the people that they tend to have this like slightly different look, right? The midsection might be a bit more developed, the obliques, right? They have, it's a different look. Instead of just that like bulky, undefined look, I find functional training adds a bit of depth to your physique. So mace bell training is another one, which is basically where it's this tool. It's like this big steel mace with a weight on the end, and you swing it around in specific patterns. I find it really good for developing the shoulders and the upper back. So yeah, these are all just some examples here. But I just really recommend the rough weekly split would look like, okay, 2 to 5 times strength training, sprints whenever you can. I'd say with sprints and cardio, I'll kind of interchange them. I kind of have 1 to 2 slots a week where I'll do cardio, and depending on how I'm feeling, I'll either do sprints or like a zone 2. And then I think in terms of functional movements, again, like 1 to 2 times a week, even just for 10 minutes. That's all I think you really need. But that's all kind of subject to whatever you feel is best. If you want to do more functional training or more cardio or just more strength training, you can obviously tweak the ratios. So this is actually the final slide, I think. But I just want to talk about, why is hypertrophy even important? I guess that's the last thing, right? So obviously when you have more muscle, it kind of bulletproofs you to like damage and things like that. Like you'll see the athletes with the most kind of tissue in the protective areas are the least likely to get injured in a lot of cases, you know, not always, but it's really good for reducing aches and pains and as you get older as well. Now, metabolically, I think this is the real benefit. Like even if you're not looking to like look super jacked, even for women, of course, as well, like having muscle tissue is amazing for your metabolism and for your insulin sensitivity. So obviously we're eating carbohydrates, right? Like that's kind of one thing I recommend. But when you do that, it spikes your insulin, which isn't inherently bad. But what the insulin is doing is it's trying to get those carbs into the muscle tissue. Now, if you have more muscle tissue, it actually takes away the need for insulin more, because there are these other transporters called GLUT4, which increase with the more muscle you have. So basically, if you have more muscle tissue, you're going to be less likely to store the food that you eat as fat, because it's going to be shuttled into the muscles by these GLUT4 receptors. So if you're trying to have a good body composition, good metabolism, having more muscle mass is really good for that. So as you get older, especially, like a lot of people try and mitigate diabetes, all this kind of stuff, like muscle mass will do that. It's so good for that. So good for just being having better body composition and energy as well. And yeah, that links to the anti-aging point here as well. Like there are lots of studies just correlating the amount of muscle mass you have with how long you live. Like super, super important. And especially when you get older, when you start to like lose muscle mass and degrade, when you start to lose tissue and degrade a little bit, or if you get sick, for example, like muscles are really good reserve tissue to have. So really, really important there. And then this is the final slide here, ideal week of movement. I've kind of touched on it. You got your daily steps, your resistance training, the release, and then the lymphatic hops, right? That's the foundation. That literally, if you took one thing away from this call, it would just be this. And then in terms of optional but beneficial, sprints, cardio, functional movements, right? That is the blueprint. Screenshot it, save it, whatever. I'll send out the slides after this as well, of course. But as I say, for specific workout routines or advice specific to you, we can talk about that now, or you can just message me directly, because I really want to make sure we personalize this. It's just, I would literally have been here all day if I'd gone deep into every area. So I think that's everything. I'm done rambling now. It's been just over an hour. I hope all of you have got some value there. Please ask any questions if you have any, and I'd be happy to just dive super deep. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Let's open it up now, and we can literally talk through anything. Right, let's see. Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, so I'm just going to switch it back, actually. I'm going to stop my share. I'm just going to switch back to cool. So if anyone has questions or not, that's completely fine, but you can type them in the chat, or you can just unmute and go for it. But yeah, if not, literally, that's completely fine.
Yeah, Freddie, a lot of good just reminders, just things that incorporate in your daily process, or when you're going to the gym or you're at home. So
yes,
jotted down some of the key things that I'm going to try to do more on a regular basis. So that was amazing. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad you got something out of it. That sounds really good. Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, yeah, as I say, if there are no pressing questions now, no worries at all. But please do message me. Like I really, if you have like a specific thing. Oh yeah, Tibor, you're actually so right. I didn't talk about fighting. So that would fit into the functional area of things, in my opinion, because you are definitely activating muscle tissues. You're activating. It's definitely great for lymphatic movement, all of that. So I think it's really useful, especially for guys, because there's a competitive aspect to it. There's this like kind of androgenic aspect. You're being quite explosive, and it's like an attacking pursuit based thing is fighting. So I think it's really useful if you have like Jack, if you're in Thailand, or there's somewhere with like boxing gyms or Muay Thai, or even jiu-jitsu. I think it's really useful to have it as a skill that you have, but also using it as a movement practice if you enjoy it. So for me, like I'm trying to look for a boxing gym near me, because I think it's really good workout. You get into a great flow state and you feel quite energized afterwards. I almost feel like the hormones are pumping as well. So it's really useful for guys. And if you feel a pull to it, fighting is definitely useful for sure. That's a good reminder. I forgot to mention that, Tibor.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing in here too. So I just did a 90-minute Muay Thai class today, and I'm just starting. I don't really know what I'm doing. But it showed me the importance of just play, of getting into flow. For me, exercising incredibly mechanically all the time is not very energizing, right? It becomes monotonous if I'm just lifting weights, if I'm just walking on the treadmill. But if I play one day of basketball, if I do one Muay Thai, like it brings this new energy out of me. So the only thing I would add or
100%.
recommend to everybody is like find something that allows you to get into play. Like it doesn't have to be go play a full court basketball game, but like could be play pickleball, could be do yoga, like try a boxing class. It makes staying active and moving fun rather than it feeling like a chore. And I just felt
100%.
amazing after that class today, and it's something I want to do like every day going forward.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember that, Jack, when we were in Toronto and we just played basketball after the gym. Like the difference in play between the two was just like profound, and I honestly felt more energized after the basketball. So that's just a good example, right? It's so true.
Yeah, it was fun to see you attempt to play basketball. You were quite a natural.
I wouldn't say that, but I appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's not so big in the UK. It's true. And yeah, Thibaut, I saw that, like wrestling with your friends. That's great too. Like I think, you know, not to get too deep into this, but I think a lot of guys today like aren't physically exerting themselves in a fighting context, which I think is useful. You know, it's a good skill to have. So yeah, I think that's a really good point there. Just like move for play, really good. You know, good advice there. Yeah, guys, I think that's everything from me. As I say, all of this will be uploaded to the core resources channel if you want to go back, if you want to watch a recording, if you want to look at the slides. And then I'm going to get that PDF typed up within the next kind of day or so, probably within the next few hours. And you guys will all have that as a resource to refer back to. But yeah, I think that's all from me, guys. Jack's going to be giving his call tomorrow. As per usual, I'm quite excited to tune in, and I will see all of you then. Cool.
Have a good rest of your day,
Awesome.
everybody. Good night.
Thank you,
See you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
No
excellent.
worries.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Freddie.
Bye.
Of course.
Tomorrow.
Bye,
Take care.
guys. See you.
Bye.
Peace.